In the name of God, most compassionate, the most merciful, may blessings and praise be upon the Prophet Muhammad. Mr. President, I would like to congratulate your deserved election as the President of the 74th General Assembly of the United Nations, and wish you success and good luck for your Excellency and the Honorable Secretary General. At the outset, I would like to commemorate the freedom-seeking movement of Hussein, peace be upon him, and pay homage to all the freedom seekers of the world who do not bow to oppression and aggression and tolerate all the hardship of the struggle for rights, as well as to the spirits of all the oppressed martyrs of terrorist strikes and bombardments in Yemen, Syria, occupied Palestine, Afghanistan, and other countries of the world, including Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, the Middle East is burning in the flames of war, bloodshed, aggression, occupation, and religious and sectarian fanaticism and extremism. And under such circumstances, the suppressed people of Palestine are the biggest victims. Discrimination, appropriation of lands, settlement expansions, and killings continue to be practiced against the Palestinians. The U.S. and Zionist imposed plans, such as the deal of the century, recognizing Beit al-Muqaddas as the capital of the Zionist regime and the accession of the Syrian Golan to the occupied territories, are certainly doomed. As against the U.S. destructive plans, the Islamic Republic of Iran's regional and international assistance and cooperation on security and counterterrorism have been so much decisive. The clear example of such an approach is our cooperation with Russia and Turkey within the Astana format on the Syrian crisis and our peace proposal for Yemen, in view of our active cooperation with the special envoys of the Secretary General of the United Nations, as well as our efforts to facilitate reconciliation talks among the Yemen parties with the 4 European countries, which resulted in the conclusion of the Stockholm Peace Accord on Hodeidah port. Distinguished participants, I hail from a country that has resisted the most merciless economic terrorism and has defended its rights to independence and science and technology development. The U.S. government, while imposing extraterritorial sanctions and threats against other nations, has made a lot of efforts to deprive Iran from the advantages of participating in the global economy, and has resorted to international piracy, by misusing the international banking system. We Iranians have been the pioneers of freedom-seeking movements in the region, while seeking peace and progress for our nation as well as our neighbors. And we have never surrendered to foreign aggression and imposition. We cannot believe the invitation to negotiation of people who claim to have applied the harshest sanctions of history against the dignity and prosperity of our nation. How someone can believe that the silent killing of a great nation and pressure on the life of 83 million Iranians, particularly women and children, are welcomed by the American government officials who pride themselves on such pressures and exploit sanctions in an addictive manner against a spectrum of countries such as Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, China, and Russia. The Iranian nation will never, ever forget and forgive these crimes and these criminals. Ladies and gentlemen, the attitude of the incumbent US government towards the nuclear deal or the JCPOA not only violates the provisions of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2231, but also constitutes a breach of the sovereignty and political and economic independence of all of the world's countries. In spite of the American withdrawal from the JCPOA, and for 1 year, Iran remained fully faithful to all of its nuclear commitments in accordance with the JCPOA. Out of respect for the Security Council resolution, we provided Europe with the opportunity to fulfill its 11 commitments made to compensate for the US withdrawal. However, unfortunately, we only heard beautiful words while witnessing no effective measures. It has now become clear for all that the United States turns back to its commitments, and Europe is unable and incapable of fulfilling its commitments. We even adopted a step-by-step approach in implementing paragraphs 26 and 36 of the JCPOA. And we remain committed to our promises in the deal. However, our patience has a limit. When the US does not respect the United Nations Security Council resolutions, and when Europe displays inability, the only way shall be to rely on national dignity, pride, and strength. They call us to negotiations while they run away from treaties and deals. We negotiated with the incumbent US government on the 5+1 negotiating table. However, they failed to honor the commitment made by their predecessor. On behalf of my nation and state, I would like to announce that our response to any negotiation under sanctions is negative. The government and people of Iran have remained steadfast against the harshest sanctions in the past 1.5 years, and will never negotiate with an enemy that seeks to make Iran surrender with the weapon of poverty, pressure, and sanctions. If you require a positive answer, and as declared by the leader of the Islamic Revolution, the only way for talks to begin is to return to commitments and compliance. If you are sensitive to the name of JCPOA, well, then you can return to its framework and abide by the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2231. Stop the sanctions so as to open the way for the start of negotiations. I would like to make it crystal clear. If you are satisfied with the minimums